welcome to my paint-along video of this moose. This is a fun little watercolor sketch to give you an intro to the wonders of watercolor. So to begin with, we are laying in that sap green, yellow ochre in the background very lightly, leaving some little holes for sparkle. We can go over those later if you'd like. And just a light wash to begin with. This makes that moose stand out and also gives that foliage look in the background of trees. We're not going into any detail on the trees in the background. It's just somewhat of a suggestion. The center of interest is, of course, the moose in the foreground, and this moose has just dipped his head in the water, and as the head comes out of the water, it drips down from his fur. It's fun doing these wild animals with fur that has so much texture. You can do some lifting and darks and lights, and then disturb the paint with the brush by lifting it out, and that gives it a texture that gives the appearance of the fur, especially the wet fur. So just laying in now some darker blue with the green, and let that fuse together like only you can do with watercolor. The wet background. Colors just fuse together. And so it gives that indication of a background that is far away and kind of fuzzy. Now in his antlers, I'm dropping in a combination of yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and blue. That's light, just a light wash at this point. This first layer is the beginning of the several layers to come. You don't want too much paint or too much water in this first layer. And then as it dries, I come back with the next layer called glazing to give it a little bit more dimension and detail. The antlers are actually pretty light color, but they do have color. There's some pinks in there, darks, lights, and a little bit of line work. So we'll let that dry and then go to the background again and drop in some, just a wash of grays mixed with burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. At this point, while it's still wet, I like to disturb the background just a little bit to give it that fuzzy look. And then I'm dropping in the yellow ochre and burnt sienna right up against that highlight. That's where the light is shining down. So I move that light and just go around the eyes, or the eye, the only one eye that you see since it's profile. Cerulean blue is a good color to use for the underpainting, and that gives the fur that texture. As you put in dark over that cerulean blue, it gives it a look of texture. It's a good blue to use, but I also use ultramarine blue as well with the burnt sienna. Let those colors just merge together. And drop in a little bit of the alizarin crimson, and that will give us some more depth and dark color. Alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and burnt sienna is a very good deep dark. Just do these in layers. Don't try to get the dark as dark as you want it, because that will make it look a little pasty looking once it dries. several layers of light washes, letting the paint fuse into each other, and then let it dry, and then come back over that with more detail. To soften the edges of those drips and not make them so fuzzy. There's more of those dark darks up against that cerulean blue. You won't see much of the cerulean blue, but it helps to just get that atmospheric look. It actually makes the fur look kind of shiny. Just disturbing that edge just a little bit so you have some soft edges and some hard edges. There's good hard edges around the antlers, but I want some soft edges around the top of his head or the nose. Now the fur is just several layers of burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and that alizarin crimson, that red color. As it dries, there's just more and more line work, and each layer will become darker and darker. The more layers you do, the more you'll have those details that come out with more dry brush. And use the tip of your brush to get that good point as you're doing those furry hairs. Let them come to a point. That will give more the look of fur. Try to keep those fur lines going in the direction that you see them go. The more directional it is, the more it will look three-dimensional. Now in some areas I like to wet my brush, dry it off on a paper towel, and then come back in and just disturb that paint a little bit. Give it that fused look. And sometimes that requires me to just lift out some of the paint. But it gives a nice fused, soft look. And that's the style I'm looking for in these wild animals. Soften the edge in some of the areas. Hard edges and soft edges. That's what gives the watercolor its character. Have you ever seen a moose in a lake drinking? Or just a moose there standing at any time? We want to give them some space. But they're fun animals to watch in the wild. I've watched many of them. And this one was fun to paint. A little darker in the background to make those antlers stand out more, so the center of interest will be more prominent. The background's important to suggest that there's greenery back there, but the job that it creates is bringing that center of interest forward. When your eye is focused more on the moose, but it's also saying that it's recognizing that there are trees in the background. I'm coming back and doing a little bit more detail in the fur as it dries. Some of it's still wet. You can utilize that wet paint as well. Detail around the nose. You see see that blue color of the cerulean blue underneath. Leave a tiny little dot in that eye for reflection. Emphasizing a little bit more of them. For underneath, I'm making those darks because of the shadow underneath. Back in the background once more, tidying that up just a little bit. I lost the shape. The shape of his nose, little nose. Clean that up a little bit. You don't have to be too detailed. More of a suggestion is sometimes better. Dropping in a little bit of burnt sienna there to warm those antlers up just a little. It's a good warm color. There's also blues in there as well. Hope you've enjoyed doing this little painting of the moose, and you might want to rewind it and do it as many times as you need to practice these techniques.